All right, hi everyone. My name is Katrina Tanner, and as you can see, I'm here going to be speaking about Agile wedding planning. Somebody recently said that that's not always intuitive, and that weddings sometimes naturally always have things that go wrong, and so really, can you be agile? And can we do it? Can we be agile enough to respond to the change and be able to make changes after something happens? So I actually chose this picture specifically, my husband John and his now 4-year-old daughter Evie. This is pivotal to what our wedding looked like. This picture is where I'm trying to hand her my bouquet and she's wanting to play on the rock, okay? So this gives you just a brief context as to what our wedding planning looked like. We were trying to plan a wedding in another state for 100 plus of our family and friends with a 3-year-old. So that in itself already comes with certain, I would say, complications, but they're not really complications, just interesting challenges and unique personality to our individual wedding. So throughout this presentation, I'll just do an introduction as to who I am, give you a little bit of background, get to know me, hopefully get to know you a little bit more, as well as, before we get into the Agile wedding planning, tell you a little bit about who I am and why I even went down that road, and give you a backstory as to how we even decided on Agile. And then lessons learned, and give you an opportunity to do Q&A, and then do a little retrospective, because specifically for this presentation, I have submitted for Agile 2019, as well as I'm going to possibly be talking about this subject in articles and submitting for other places. So any feedback that you can give, I am greatly appreciative of, and we'll talk about things that you can think about throughout the presentation. What's the most beneficial? What do you think could probably be is like great information, but something that's not as interesting to you? Okay? Yes?
I love the color of your dress. It's white.
Thank you. So this fancy dress was actually my wedding rehearsal dress.
Oh, yes.
So this is, I was telling some people that I was planning to wear my dress, but my husband's not home and I can't put it on myself. And it's a ball gown, so I was going to have trouble trying to drive in it. So this is what you get, and it's very comfortable, which is actually one of the things that I'll talk about in your wedding planning.
And it was noticed.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay with you if I post a picture of you on Twitter?
Absolutely. I actually
It's just so wonderful.
No, absolutely. So my husband actually suggested doing Facebook Live, but I wasn't sure what the rules are and confidentiality and all that kind of stuff. So I'm videotaping, but I'm not posting right now. So yes, feel free to post whatever you want. And then we'll talk about the Kanban is also some of the items I have over here. So feel free to take pictures. My Twitter handle is @KLCoker25, so feel free to tag me. All right, so just a little bit of background as to who I am. I have a wonderful, wonderful husband. He's one of the most amazing people in my life I've ever met. And I have a wonderful 4-year-old stepdaughter, Evelyn Rose, and we call her Evie. So some other tidbits. I am originally from Georgia. I have a master's in conflict management and a bachelor's in international business from Kennesaw State University. I also have been a member of Toastmasters. I haven't been involved as much since I moved to the DC area about a year ago, but that's also one of the things that I'm practicing, is to be a better speaker and being more comfortable. So please feel free to ding me on filler words. I am happily a part of a wonderful organization called the Standby Task Force. It's a digital humanitarian aid network where we work with people from all over the U.S. during natural disasters and response. So some of the things that I did was during Hurricane Harvey in Houston, people would post things like, I had a doctor who said, I have a patient who is 9 months pregnant and the water's coming up to her front door. This is her address. So we would send the address to the military and they would do geographical coordinates to go try to find her. So that's the kind of stuff that we do in that organization. I'm very proud of it. and it's something that I highly recommend. I love to eat. It is my favorite pastime, and I love culture. So I have a culture blog. I love to go to festivals and museums, anything like that, but I also have a food blog, table booth or bar. It started out as a blog, and it's not really much to say. Then Twitter, which I do have a Twitter account, but really now my Instagram is my favorite. And then I'm also in just a personal enrichment class, my 3rd year of a 4-year advanced biblical studies program.
Wonderful.
So that's just me. Now, in terms of, well, okay, that stuff is great, but how did you get here? My Agile portfolio. I was an engagement analyst for Leading Agile, which is a Agile consultancy firm for 2 years, and that's where I got certified as a Scrum Master and a Product Owner. In my current role, I actually work for Equifax as a Scrum Master Product Owner. I was hired as a Product Owner, but I also serve in both roles. Oh, another thing is, from an informal Agile background. So that was my formal background. My informal Agile background, and how you might say outside of my professional life and outside of technology, is that I love vision boards. I love vision boards. Yes.
How often do you change them?
Okay, so that's a really good question that I can get to. But the short answer is I did this one almost 2 years ago, and I'm actually getting ready to do another one. Theoretically, I would like to do it every year, but it just didn't work out that way. This was actually a 5-year journey, so I kind of gave myself some wiggle room. I also have been involved in a formal accountability partnership. That is a friend of mine, my lovely friend Olga, and for about 2 years, we corresponded every single day, and we set up what our goals were. We set 10 goals, and we did this bi-monthly, and we met every single day to talk about what we accomplished that day towards our goals. We also had retrospectives. One time we even met to say, hey, is this really relevant anymore? And then the gentleman at the bottom, that was actually in a professional environment at Leading Agile. Those 3 gentlemen we had an accountability group on our own, to where we met every 2 weeks to talk about specifically our professional goals. And then, of course, the lovely thing where you came to talk about today is my husband and I planned our wedding using Kanban. Okay, so this was actually our board that we use at home. We still have the board today, and this is our layout. I will talk about it a little bit more, but a little bit of background is my husband is in the Agile industry. Miss Diana over here works with him, and Nicole also knows him as well. And so that also helps that I already had a husband who works in that Agile framework, so it was much easier to have this up on our living room wall. Okay, but before I talk about Kanban, okay, now I'm putting on my product owner hat, and before you start getting into your backlog and what you want to do, you got to know why you're doing it, right? You got to know what the purpose is, and you also got to be able to have a team to accomplish it, right? So, Camille is getting ready to get married. She's our wonderful camera woman back here, and she mentioned before that, it can be really overwhelming, and you're trying to choose between whether you're going to have a small wedding or a big wedding, okay? So, the first thing I would say is you got to know, what is your wedding vision? When you sit and you think about when you're getting married and you're saying those vows and you're soaking in the spirit that's around you, what do you see? Do you see just you and your partner, an officiant or a preacher, whoever that is? Do you see a beach? Do you see it as surrounded by family and friends in a chapel? To me, that's where it all starts. Before you start looking at your to-do list, what is it that your core wants? And I say that because I love weddings. my husband and I did have a larger wedding, and I don't regret it because it was exactly what we wanted. But the reason why you also got to know your wedding vision is because it's gonna require you to make every decision based off of that. And there are going to be a lot of people, a lot of voices around you that are going to want certain things, but it's about what your vision is. Okay? Now, and I will say an example, my husband and I almost didn't have a rehearsal dinner because it just wasn't as important to us. It was another expense. We did because we wanted to gift that to our bridal party, but that's not what we needed to get married. The only reason we had a cake was because it was included in the venue price. My husband and I don't really love cake, although the cake we got was freaking delicious, I will say that. But that wasn't our priorities. Okay? So this, I'll kind of switch it around a little bit. My husband and I were the customers because we were paying for it. We were the stakeholders along with our parents because as parents you want to go to your children's wedding and also they want to know that they look good to other people. Let's just say, you know, I remember my dad came home from a wedding one time and was like, whoa, when y'all get married, I want our guests to have fun because that was the most boring wedding I've ever been to. I thought I was at a funeral. So we're talking about customers and stakeholders, but who are your users? Our users were everyone, our wedding guest. So when we're talking about in an agile environment and our products, it's not just about who's paying for it, but what is the user experience, right? So those were all things that we built into our decision. And when it comes to Camille choosing your wedding, those are decisions you have to make if you choose to have users, because you might be the only user, and that's okay, right? But those are all decisions you might want to take. Now, on the left, my husband and I, we actually did have a mission for our wedding and a vision. To celebrate our marriage in a pastoral way with family and friends that love us. That is what we made. Yes, ma'am?
Family, friends and friends.
Oh, it's supposed to, yeah, okay, good thing. Thank you for fixing that. But yes, friends and family. That was our core decision, and that's what we envisioned. Okay? Now, we also had a fundamental belief that it is not expensive to get married. It is expensive to have a wedding. And it turns out we were right. It can be very expensive, but one thing you also got to determine is what is the investment, okay? Because wedding is not just a legal document. If you wanted it to be a legal document, you could go up to get your marriage license, raise your hand, and say, I do, right then and there. But if you view it as sacrament or instilling the beginning of an initiation event, then it's something that that you might be willing to spend a little bit of money on for that lifetime experience. So these are what we decided we made every decision based off of these. So when you're planning your wedding, before you even start doing your backlog or putting up your Kanban board or your to-do list, these are the things that are going to make those decisions, right?
So did you have this vision before, or is this after the fact?
That's actually a really good question. So the fundamental belief, that is a core value that I held in my heart. I saw weddings tear family and friends apart, and I knew that I did not want to be a part of that. That if that was going to happen, then we either weren't going to have a wedding or it was just going to be me, him, and Evie somewhere. Because I wanted it to be something special, and then also I didn't want to go broke. And so those were values that I held before I ever met John. I've been a part of a lot of weddings. Now, the mission, John and I built together. John had been previously married, and so he kind of already had the marriage experience, but he also didn't have a wedding. And his family and friends were not a part of that marriage institution, right? Or that ceremony to start with. So it was something that we knew that's something that I was attentive to, but then it's also something he cared about. So we built a mission together. Okay. So with that being said, I have some questions.